There we go. And welcome back to TeknoCratik. As I said, welcome back to TeknoCratik. We've had a bit of a hiatus, but we're back. I'm back, obviously, with Tim as usual. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm a bit tired, like I've been for the last few months. There's a lot going on at work at the minute, so I've been a bit tired and a bit demotivated. So it's probably one of the reasons we haven't got together in a while. And I've been getting up very early every other day, so it's been difficult to schedule as well with me being conscious. How are you?
About the same, to be honest, although not for the same reasons. Tired, unmotivated, fighting silly copyright stuff and more silly stuff, and finding work, which is like finding a needle in a very large haystack that's the size of Texas. Yeah, that's been my life.
So we're going to be a lot of fun tonight.
Oh yeah, we're going to be loads of fun.
Well, what we thought we would do is we'll have a quick catch up and see what we've been doing and stuff, and try and be positive, you know, and then have a look at a few things that have been happening since we've been away. And for everybody who may not know, we're doing a video. We're doing this on video these days, so you'll primarily get, if you want to see our faces, you'll be able to view this in YouTube, as well as there will be an audio edition at a later stage, because it'll probably be a very similar time, but the YouTube version should come out first, because there's going to be more of a raw version with all our mistakes, and you know, all two of them that we'll make tonight probably, because we don't make many mistakes, do we?
Oh no, definitely not. Although why you'd want to see this in video, I don't know. I mean,
well, you know, some people, you know, they're just glutton for punishment, you know.
I guess.
Or just very curious.
All this, fine, I guess. What you do is
what about me?
Yeah, I noticed your hair has changed since we last talked.
Yeah, I've not had a haircut since last year, so.
Wow.
So where it still grows, not much on here, but where it still grows, it's growing quite a bit. Anyway, we're not the hairstyling podcast. We're the technology opinion podcast. You know.
I mean, our opinions on technology are dubious enough. I mean, if you want to get our hair opinions, I don't even know where to begin to help you.
But yeah, so for people who've been under a rock or are new to the show, we do cover some news, but we don't go in depth about every single news item that's been happening, because there's plenty of much better shows out there that do a great job with that. So, but we sort of cover the stuff that interests us and what we have an opinion on. You know, we may not be right. You know, we may not always agree, but everybody's got an opinion, and we like to voice ours in quite a bit sometimes, and it's usually stuff we've actually used. Sometimes it's stuff we'll never use and we have an opinion about, but you know, it depends. So let's have we've got a look at my notes here. So let's see. So you said you were struggling with work at the minute and everything, but you're still doing a little bit of freelancing, aren't you, at the moment?
Mm-hmm. Still doing freelancing, getting jobs on a semi-regular basis with my startup and getting some work, and about to teach classes, which should be an interesting thing.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, one of the churches at my old hometown contacted me because they're interested in getting someone to teach their congregation, or at least members of the congregation, on how to use their computers. So next month I'll be teaching a 2-hour class and going from there, and maybe it might expand into something more.
That sounds cool. It's what every little bit, a bit of experience, and that is slightly different to what you've been doing. You've been doing mostly one-to-one sort of help, haven't you? IT support.
And likely I'll be doing more of that even with the classes, because I'm sure people who take the class are going to want me to do one-on-one
Yes,
topics.
you can generate a bit of business. Cool, very good. Right, so shall we have a chat about our technology? Because I think we've both, because we had a bit of a hiatus, we've both sort of changed a little bit of what we've been using. I know you had another technology accident, haven't you? Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, that's right. I did talk about that. Water hates me, and I hate water. Yet it's all I'm drinking today, so it's a very odd relationship. I don't even know. For those of you that don't know, I decided that my phone needed to take a swim in the Hawaiian Oceans. Shockingly, it didn't survive that experience. No, to be serious, my phone accidentally got wet in the water and, well, obviously fried itself. And yes, I did try a few remedies to fix it, but by the time I'd shut the phone off and everything, I could smell, what do they call it? I think they called ozone, but I could be wrong. I smelled it burning. Right. I have taken a look at it later, and I would show you guys now. But it's all closed up, so I'm not going to waste our time looking at it. But basically, right where the battery connects to the phone is fried, and I'm sure there's other parts of it that got fried along with it. So the chances of me ever fixing it again are pretty unlikely. I'm looking at methods of trying to, but I'm not investing too much into it. So my Samsung Galaxy S3 is dead. In its place, new HTC One, the new model.
It's funny you should say that, because I've got I've got an HTC One M8 as well. The reason I've got this is I was due an upgrade anyway in the very near future, and my wife Laura was in desperate need of a phone, because she had a sort of a pretty budget iPhone after she switched from an Android phone after she switched from an iPhone, and she really enjoyed it, but then she lost it at a party on the way home from her brother's wedding. We managed to lose it somehow, and then she had to make do with her old iPhone, and it wasn't working very well, and you couldn't be updated and all that, and I was desperate to try and get her to get another phone, but she was holding out and waiting to see what we can do and see if my upgrade to turn up, time to come and everything, and it did. So we've took the plunge, and she now has my S3, which is still working great, and I upgraded to the M8, and I've got to say I'm quite impressed with it. I know you'd said before that you were pretty impressed with it, but we've not really talked about it much. But it's still got it as stock. I've not changed anything on it because I'm quite enjoying it actually. When I got the S3, I was on the stock Android for a while, but for a week or two, and then I couldn't stand it. I liked Android, but I didn't like the TouchWiz interface, and I wanted to mess around with it anyway because it was my first decent Android device. So I wanted to do stuff with it, but with this one, I've not had the urge to do anything because it's a really nice interface. The HTC Sense is so much more sophisticated. That's probably the right word in comparison to the Samsung overlays that they use on TouchWiz. I don't know what you think.
I definitely like Sense more than I ever did TouchWiz. For the most part, I just modify or just installed like Nova and other apps to basically get rid of TouchWiz as much as possible, but a lot of it's still there unless you can root it. And I never got around to rooting it. I was actually planning on doing so after Hawaii. Obviously, that never happened.
No, you just rooted it in the ocean.
Yeah, I rooted it in the ocean. It's shocking that it didn't work. I guess TouchWiz just holds on with an iron grip. But no, I've never liked Samsung's handling of the UI or how they handle any of their apps. It's just bad. I don't even have a good description for how they manage it, and that's one of the main reasons I didn't want to go to the S5, because I've played around with the S5. It's an interesting device and whatnot, but it comes with all the baggage of Samsung, and I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. So I figured, let's give HTC a try, and I'm impressed with it so far. The Sense UI is very lightweight. It doesn't really get in your face too much. There are a few annoyances that I don't like all of the icons. Like, I'm on the road, so I've got music playing, I've got my GPS going to get me wherever, and probably something else I'm forgetting. And you have all these icons just taking up the entire notification bar. It's like, I don't need to know that my music is playing and that it's connected to headphones. I don't need to know that my 4G connection is going or that my GPS is going. All these icons are there's just too many. Yeah. So if I ever root it, it's going to be for that reason.
Yeah. Well, like you touched on, you said about Samsung. Yeah, I did find especially after the S3 and the S4, it was obvious that Samsung wanted to overtake Google in terms of the premium Android, manufacturer. And in the sense of they've replaced a lot of the Google apps with their own apps, the this, that, and everything like that. And there were rumors that they were going to switch to Tizen, get everybody used to all the Samsung apps, and then switch away from Android to have complete control themselves. And I think they have started to do that a little bit with. I think they've just released a Tizen phone, or they're about to release one. I read somewhere. So it's obvious that they're trying to take, they are the biggest player in Android anyway, in terms of market share. But obviously HTC are a lot smaller, and they seem to they're more about the design and the build. I think they're probably closer to Android's answer to the iPhone, if you know what I mean, in terms of the design and things like that. The things that I like about an iPhone, that the HTC, has, the design of the case and the metal back, and it's all brushed aluminium, and and that's just the hardware, and then you got the software, and like you said, it doesn't get in your face. There's not loads and loads and loads of apps. Their particular apps or things. They've got their own little ecosystem there, but it's not in your face, like you said, and it doesn't get in the way. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm going to keep it as it is. To be honest, this isn't an issue for HTC, but I mentioned it to you. The only thing that took me by surprise is the handling of the external SD card, and that's a KitKat issue. Android 4.4.2 is it? Yeah, and onwards. The not being able to write to the SD card, I found that very strange. And after reading a bit about it, I sort of understand why they did it. It's just a security thing, and trying to tighten apps misbehaving and everything like that. But I've still not got my head completely around it. I don't know if you have got a better grasp of it than me.
My understanding is that they switched it from the FAT32 format to just the ext4 format, which is a lot of techno jargon, which my understanding is they just switched to a more Linux-based file system, because that is more secure than the old FAT32 system that Windows uses, or used to use. Even Windows has mostly switched over to NTFS, which is their own proprietary file system. And the idea is that apps can only read and write to their own special location. They can't just take over the SD card like I guess they've been finding out apps have been doing.
I don't think it's the actual file system that does it. It's something to do with the permissions for the SD card, because my SD card's still FAT32, because all I did was I took my SD card out of my S3, which I know was FAT32, and I put it straight into this. It's to do with the permissions in KitKat, which don't allow apps to interact. They can interact with one directory on an external SD card. Say, for example, Pocket Cast does it. You have to update the app to do it, but Pocket Cast, I can still use that and put all my podcasts on my external SD card, but it can only do one directory at a time. It can't change anything. And it's only an issue for apps that haven't updated. Like I tried a couple of apps which I tried to use the external SD card as their directory for storage, and it wouldn't accept it. It said it couldn't write to it, which is exactly what it can't do unless the app has been updated. But Pocket Cast has, and there are a couple of other apps that have, but they can only deal with one directory at a time. Now, the downside is something like I use ES File Manager, which is like a file manager for Android, which is quite a robust and multi-use file manager, and that will not work. It just doesn't, because it's not been updated. Well, it's not that it hasn't been updated, it's because the way a file manager works, it needs access to the entire card, and obviously that isn't allowed in KitKat, so it just doesn't work. Now, if you've got native apps, so if you've got a carrier phone which is locked, which is not rooted, and you've got native apps, they will work if the apps are allowing it, if they were designed to allow it. So if you've got a file manager built in to a phone, which most of them do, apart from this, that hasn't got one. If you notice, it hasn't got a built-in file manager.
Mm-hmm.
It will you'll be able to do exactly the same as you would before with built-in apps, but the M8 hasn't got a built-in file manager, and so you can't do it. It's like you said, it's not a massive problem because I can still plug it into a PC, into my Linux OS, and it'll read the external card, and I can still write to it and delete stuff from it, but I can't do it from the phone. And it's a little bit annoying because you can still do stuff on the internal card. So if they're trying to prevent malicious activity, surely it should be the same rules for the internal card than it is the external card. So I don't know exactly what they're doing. There's lots of complaints about it. People have been complaining, and you never know, they might change their mind in the future. And obviously if you root your phone, there are solutions which will overwrite that particular issue, so you can actually do it. So like I said, it's not a massive. I've not encountered a massive problem with it at the moment. But if I need to do anything with my card, that use it with a file manager, I just have to plug it into my computer and do it that way.
I guess I haven't played around the file manager apps at all in the external SD to even find that out. So that's probably why I haven't noticed the change. Yeah, and obviously this is a very confusing issue because even I got it completely backwards. It's not. I can see what they're trying to do, but I just don't. It seems like a half-assed solution because you can still, if you like, this phone has got 16 gig internal memory, and a lot of people will just use that, So that is totally open. It's an open playground. So why? Obviously apart from the system partition, because unless you're rooted, and if you're rooted it wouldn't matter anyway because you'd have access to the external card. You can read from it, you just can't write to it. And some things I can't even read it if they're really not been updated for a while. So it's one of those things, but it's not the phone issue, it's a KitKat issue. Mm-hmm.
Well, other than that, I'm enjoying the phone.
Yeah, I mean the cameras. I know that's been kind of the big fuss, is the cameras aren't as good as they could be, and I have to agree. I would have liked them to be better. For close. If you're taking photos at close range, they're reasonably good. I wouldn't call them the best thing on earth, but they're reasonable. Distance shots are a worse problem, but that's been a problem with smartphone cameras in general anyway. No one's done it well. Not even Samsung's doing it well. Their distance shots just look grainy and terrible. I never took them on my S3. The S5 showed no indication of it being any better because you need the lens to actually be able to, you know, I can't think of the right term for it, but basically be able to shoot from that distance. A lot of it's just done through digital fakery with digital zoom, which is a joke. Let's just
I've not played with the camera too much, to be honest. I'm not a massive camera guy, but it's a dual camera, and it's got that thing where you can put something in focus and out of focus and stuff like that. Have you tried that?
The one thing I don't like about the dual camera thing is that it has to be on automatic. So if you change the mode to anything else like macro lens or, well, their definition of macro, which I think Rick would just shake his head at. You know, if you change it to any of these other modes, that dual camera thing doesn't come into effect. So it's really limited, which is kind of unfortunate. I would have liked them to have done to allow it to be anything more than just the gimmick, which is really all of what it is. You know, and I would say that's the one thing I'm most unhappy with on this phone. But even then, that's a really minor complaint in the big scheme of things. What I really do like about it is the speakers. I am going to have a very hard time switching to anything else after having these speakers on here, because it's like playing a video now, you know, I don't need my headphones. I can just play the video right here. Oh, I get a notification by a YouTube video from a friend of mine. You should watch this. Okay, turn it on. I can actually hear the audio, which is nice because Samsung's, you know, their speakers are nice, but they're facing away from you. You can barely hear them, especially if there's any other noise or you're outside. So you might as well just give it up. So I really like the speakers. I really like the design of it. I think they did a really nice job on it. I have a case that has a little kickstand on it, which makes it even more useful to have front-facing speakers. So, yeah, and I installed, you know, the battery life's been way better than the S3. I can take a trip all the way to Portland, which is about 45 minutes away from here, and back, and still have 50% life battery with even GPS and music running. If I did that on my S3, it would probably be close to dead. So
I'm very impressed with the battery. I can if I'm not using it extensively, it'll run for it can I don't have to charge it for 2 days sometimes. If I don't use it a lot, if I'm using it, you know, if I'm at work and I'm listening to podcasts or whatever, you know, it'll still last all day, you know, and I'm unplugging it at 4 a.m. or something. I won't have to charge it until, you know, until I go to bed at 11 o'clock or something, and even then it's still got 20-30%. That's if I've been using it during the day, and if I don't use it, I've known it lasts beyond 70%, 80%, you know, and you know, say for example I've just had it in my pocket and not really done much with it, and then I can skip a night without charging it and charge it the following night, and it'll still last. So I'm very impressed with the battery. You know, obviously yours is going to be, you know, the mileage will vary as yours will be on a different, you know, carrier will have different apps than mine, and you know, it could be a totally different system, so it may vary.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed
with the usual AT&T bloatware and all that silly stuff. It's not as bad because HTC is very conservative with how many apps they have and own. I mean, they have their Sense UI, they have Blink Feed, and then they have those few other random apps. You know, it's not too bad. If I had Samsung, I'd have like 25 pointless, cheap, junk, garbage apps.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the HTC M8. Yeah, if anybody's interested in a new phone, I'd definitely recommend it. You know. So the other thing, I know we talked about your Chromebook I think probably either the last time or the time before that when we recorded, and since then we've picked up a Chromebook as well. Sounds like I'm just copying you here, but honestly I'm not.
Yeah, Dan, come on. Be your own person.
But Laura does a lot of. She's got a. She started up her own blog, and she's also does a lot of sort of freelance writing and things. So we were using my old. She was using my old laptop, and it was just a pain. The battery was non-existent. She had to have it plugged in all the time, and it weighed like a ton. Mm-hmm. So we were in the market for a lightweight sort of laptop type device, and we looked at Chromebooks, and I'd obviously spoken to you about it, and we thought, this will probably be ideal for her because she can do everything that she needs to do. It's all web based, and you got all your Google Docs and everything, and email and everything. So, and she loves it. To be honest, she uses it more than I use it as well. But she's the main user of it, and she really likes it. So, we're really happy with that. It's still, we've not done anything to it. It's still stock. It's not even been unlocked or anything, and I can see the appeal of them and why they're selling like hotcakes. And they keep coming out with newer ones, and they seem to be getting better and better. There's no surprise there.
Yeah, I've been using my Chromebook all the time. Battery life is really nice. Again, I've been saying that quite a bit lately. What else? Yeah, it's powered through everything I needed it to do. I've been using it on my jobs, to do some quick Google searches or set up USB cards. There are a few things I wish it had, but mostly half of the reason I got it was to see, could I run a laptop without having Windows on it on my job? And so far that's been yes. And unless I got a job that specifically needed Microsoft software, say Office, for whatever reason, my next laptop will probably be a Linux-based one, just to have the full, complete experience. But, having this Chromebook has been very nice, because I really am not missing anything, and I get work done that I need done. Just have Chrome with everything with it. It's just been really nice to have.
Yeah, definitely. It's exactly what the experience we've had is hardly, like you said, there's a couple of things now and again you might think you might need, but I mean, it's, since most of the stuff that she uses it for is online, and there are some decent apps in the Chrome web store now as well. You can do all sorts, and we just have to look, and we'll find something that'll do the job. The other day she needed to do she had some photos she wanted to crop, or no, she was doing a blog post, and because my kids have been using Scratch, and she wanted a screenshot of one of the game, and I'm thinking, well, I can always nip upstairs and fire up the Linux box and get it there, because I know there's a screenshot up, but I looked in the web store, and there was an app that did screenshots, and cropping, and also there's all sorts, there's everything really, so you'd be hard pressed to not find something. I think there's more apps every day, and if Google have their way, then it's gonna get bigger and bigger. It's I think it's the best. Yeah. They're the best selling laptops at the minute, aren't they? They're the top selling laptops.
They're top selling on Amazon, yeah, and they've been strong for over a year now, if I'm not mistaken. And we just had Samsung release their second version to mixed reviews. Most of the problems comes with the CPU that they decided to go with, and even I was like, really, you guys went with your own again? Let's see, Acer released an updated version of this one with just touchscreen, so nothing new there. Asus just released a desktop with, I think, a laptop coming soon. And I think it was Toshiba that announced a Chromebook.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few companies I get mixed up, and I think it was either Toshiba or Fujitsu or someone in that. There's just a lot more companies bringing in Chromebooks, and even HP is going all in.
I saw the new HP one as well. They look quite good. So yeah, it's definitely something to look out for in the future, and I think it's something that as a general computer user, I think, you know, unless you're in media production or whatever stuff like that, it's very useful for anybody really. You know, the average person. I wouldn't, if my mother wanted a computer tomorrow, I'd get her a Chromebook. You know, I wouldn't get her certainly wouldn't get her a Windows 8 laptop, and I doubt I'd get her a Linux box, you know, Linux laptop, because she wouldn't need it for what she'd want to do. Not that I still think, you know, Linux gives you a lot more well-rounded system, but she didn't need it. She wouldn't need it. So, and they're cheap and they're good quality, good builds. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't need the full desktop experience, why go with it when you can just use a Chromebook, you know? I mean, just makes sense to do it that way.
Yeah, and talking of Linux, how we will our Linux challenge. You mentioned you switched again, which is about right for most Linux users. Hop about. I know I do.
Yeah, I switched to Ubuntu, away from, what would I have been on back then? That was
Solid
Aurora,
K?
I think.
Oh, Aurora. Yeah, you went from Solid K to Aurora, didn't you?
Yeah, I went Solid K to Aurora to Ubuntu.
You like your KDE. I'm not a KDE fan. I really am not. I used to use it years ago, and I still can't get back into it. You know? I don't know what it is, but you know the login screen where it flashes up all the different icons. That still bugs me to this day. You know, when you log in and it fires up the hard drive and it fires up this and it fires up that, and it's a great looking system, especially, you know, great looking desktop, especially now they're switching to Qt and everything, and everything's moving along and design wise, but and it's very, very customizable. I just think it's too many options on it for me. You know, I'm not a massive customizer of desktops. You know, I'll change like the theme and things like that, but I don't really need a lot of bells and whistles. So KDE has always been for the desktop tinkerer. You know.
Yeah, I like my KDE, and I might try some of the other desktop environments later, just for the heck of it. But for now, KDE is where I'm at.
So
but yeah, Kubuntu. So I'm
Kubuntu.
on the latest version of Kubuntu, which is their long-term support one. And I'm really happy to see a lot of the changes implemented, because I think it's made my installation process a lot easier. The default driver now is one of the latest NVIDIA drivers, 331, I think, which is great because my card has issues with the older drivers not working properly. And because that's now the default, I had 0 issues with setting up this time. No random artifacts, no VSync issues, nothing. When I started up a game, it played without a problem. I didn't have any visual problems that I used to have on the old driver. So that alone, just the fact that that's a long-term support release, has made me a lot happier. So I'm glad to see that the Ubuntu line has finally upgraded from the old, I think it was like 301 driver, 309. So I'm definitely happy with that. I haven't played with it as much as I'd like to for the time being, but I'm using it and not having any issues to report at the moment.
Yeah, you know, I've always been a fan of Ubuntu. I did run 14.04. I had the Unity. I tried Unity and, you know, the regular Ubuntu, and I did the Ubuntu GNOME edition as well. And 14.04 is definitely a solid release, you know, and because it's an LTS as well, you've got 5-year support. It's ideal, really. The only thing that I had an issue with, and I think I talked to you about, was the issue with FFmpeg, you know, and Audacity and things like that, because FFmpeg has been depreciated in Debian, and it's been replaced with something else which I've forgotten, which is basically the same thing but renamed and updated. But Audacity relies on the old version of FFmpeg, and you have to, there is ways of getting it to work, and you can build your own copy of Audacity that will with FFmpeg support or the newer version support or old or something like that. But it's very, very fiddly, and I don't have time to mess around with that. And for anybody who's wondering what the heck we're on about, it's if you ever used Audacity and you could import an MPEG-4 video into Audacity and it'll rip the audio, and it's basically, it does a lot more than that, but it's to do with video to audio and video to video conversion. It's a tool, a library that's used by every operating system, you know, whether it's Mac, Windows, whatever, BSD, and Linux, and most Linux, and some other distributions have solved the problem, but Debian and obviously Ubuntu, because it's based on Debian, has inherited this issue. Is they've just pulled support for FFmpeg out of Audacity, so the version of Audacity you get with Ubuntu and Debian just doesn't support it. So I thought, well, I can either stick with this and then use another tool, because it's not often I need to, but for example for this show, I'm going to I need to pull the audio from this show to edit it into an audio show. So I'm thinking ahead and thinking I'm gonna need this support, and I do like to use Audacity. I'm not keen on a lot of the other tools. You know, it works for me, and I thought, well, do I try something else? And I've been playing with Arch Linux for a while, off and on, and part of the problem I had with it was it's quite a different way of doing things, in that, you know, their package manager was slightly different, and because I didn't understand it very well, I struggled with it, and I just took the time to understand it, and I built it from scratch, which was not fun. I wouldn't do it again, because you're literally building it from the command line and creating all your partitions and installing your base system and installing everything else, and you have to literally think of everything you need while you're doing it, otherwise you'll end up with no printer drivers or no support for MP3s or video, or so you've got to install everything. You got to install your desktop environment, you've got to install support for, you know, X Windows, but yeah, it's a good learning tool, you know, to do that and figure out how it all works and how their package system works. And eventually I figured out how it works, and they've got a very good package manager. I think that's one of their strengths, because they've got it's a community system anyway, but they've got their package package manager called Pacman, which is short for package manager. And on top of that, they've got what they call the AUR, which is the Arch user repository, which is not the same repos as the ones that are used by Pacman, which is the Arch repository, but it's all user maintained binaries, and sometimes it's actually it's just source code as well. So what it means is basically anything that you need is pretty much available for Arch. You know, if it's not there today, it'll probably be there tomorrow. It's a really extensive packages, you know, and it's all bleeding edge stuff. So if Audacity updates within hours, it'll be available. You know, whereas on Ubuntu or on Fedora or something, it might take weeks before you can actually do it, unless you go out and get it yourself. And once I learned how to use it, I found it to be really, really good, because everything is up to date. You know, I'm on the bleeding edge of everything, and you know, stability-wise, obviously you're taking more of a risk, but you just have to, you know, it's swings and roundabouts. It's like, I find I've not had pretty much any issues, and obviously I wouldn't recommend that to everybody, in terms of, you know, Ubuntu would probably be more than adequate for most people. I'd still run it on different machines. If I had another machine that needed it, I wouldn't necessarily want to run Arch on everything, and I wouldn't recommend a vanilla Arch installation to everyone. It is pretty hardcore stuff. But I'm using, after I'd gone back and forth a little bit, and I decided to go back to an Arch-based system. I just used a system called Antergos, which is based on Arch. It's basically Arch, automated version of Arch, which installs, you know, your own preferences, but it gives you the basic system, so you can install it with a desktop environment and printer support and sound support and everything, and it does everything for you to an extent, and it gives you all the basic stuff, and you can select certain packages on an installation, and it's brilliant. I really enjoy it. I'm running it with Cinnamon at the minute because I quite enjoy the look of Cinnamon. It's quite classic. It's like a traditional desktop, and I like GNOME as well, which is more of a modern desktop. But there's a lot to be said for a traditional desktop with like a menu, not a start menu, but a file menu with all your apps and everything in and everything like that. And like I said, the having everything available to me that there can be, you can't ask for much more than that, So that's what I'm running at the minute, and I'm probably going to stick to that for now, at least. I've got everything up and running pretty well, and the other thing is the documentation. Although it is a little bit more technical, the documentation is fantastic. There's documentation for everything. If you wanted to install it from scratch, you put your mind to it, you could do it, because there's step-by-step guides, which are official guides for everything. So, and if you have a problem with something, chances are the wiki will have the answer to the problem. I had a problem not long. There's a bug at the minute in. It's quite funny. I was just saying about being stable. There's a bug where a particular package is updated, and then it stops certain software working, like Chrome and some other stuff. So it just stops it working, and it's just a bug in one of the updates, and I went out and found it's a simple solution just to downgrade that package, and without even rebooting, it was up and running again, no problem, within seconds. So there's a really good community there as well. So it's as I said, it's not for the newbie, but it's definitely a powerful system. Arch.
Yep. Yeah, and I've been trying to get a Arch Linux server. We can get that out eventually. Set up from scratch on my old gaming desktop, the one I had issues with a while back.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it set up and running, except it won't let me log in, so I think I have to do it over. We tried a bunch of different fixes, they didn't work, so I got it running, which is the important part, but it won't let me log in. So
that's
I think
pretty important.
Yeah, so I think I need to fix that.
So what were you wanting to do with it?
I want to learn about servers and just learning about Linux in general.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to eventually set up my own Mumble server, my own server in general, just have a file server and whatnot, and maybe run my own
server.
Hmm?
What made you choose Arch to run as a server? Because it's not typically, because Arch is always quite bleeding edge. A lot of people don't like to use it for a server because things change, whereas servers you'd want them to be a little bit more static. So, what made you choose Arch?
Because a friend of mine runs an Arch server, and he likes it from what I've heard from him. Two, it forces me to learn the very basics of servers, because not all of them are run a UI, a graphical interface. So it forces me to learn the command line instead, which might be important if I ever get asked in a job interview. Do you know how to use the command line? And sure, it might be for Windows DOS or whatever, Windows Server, but at least I'll have a semi-reasonable understanding of it, and I won't just look at it and go, help.
I agree. It's a great way to learn Linux from scratch, basically, because you're installing. You literally start the command prompt, and you've got to partition your hard drive, and you've got to install the base system. The Arch server runs pretty much the same as an Arch desktop. You just don't have the desktop, or you can have a desktop on there, and or you can just have it as headless. Like it sounds like you're having it as a terminal, to command line. So you can run it headless, and you can SSH into it or something like that, and which is, yeah, like I say, it's a good way to do it. But you can do that with CentOS, for example. CentOS is a very stable Fedora-based server. You know, it's basically Red Hat Enterprise, but free. It's the same sort of packages. You got, you know, Debian even, you know. But yeah, I suppose since your friend runs it, it made sense for you to do that, since you could pick his brain if things went wrong and stuff. But it is fiddly. It can be fiddly. But yeah, it's worth doing for that. And if you got a spare machine and you want to run like I said, like a Mumble server on there, or a Minecraft server, or
an cloud server, which I'm considering.
Cloud,
So yeah, it's mostly just an experiment for me. I might decide in the future if Arch is too unstable, then I'll just say, okay, fine, I'll just run a Ubuntu LTS and go from there. But for now, it's more geared towards learning because I still have Dropbox and other cloud services that I use right now. So I can use this and I can screw up as much as I want and not have to worry about losing a thing.
Yeah, very true. Talking of servers, I said we started playing Minecraft. I don't know if you noticed that I put a message out. My girls quite like the idea of it. They've been playing other stuff, but I thought we'd get into that, and plus it's an excuse for me to be able to play it. So we got a Minecraft account, and that's one thing I wish we could use a Chromebook for. You can't play Minecraft on a Chromebook, but
no, it doesn't quite have that hardware for it. But yeah, Minecraft. It's the game I have yet to play.
You've never played it?
I'm one of the few people that's never played it, and I call myself a gamer too. Oops.
It's actually really fun. I'm still learning how to do everything, because I built a server. You know, we were playing, obviously we've only got one account, so that limits you anyway. So we were playing the single player game, and that's like set in creative mode, so you can destroy things and rebuild things. You've got unlimited resources and things. And I built a server which I'm running on the same machine on the local host. So, but then you're starting off with nothing, and I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I get anything? You know, I assume it probably works better if there are other people there, because then you could probably get things from them and stuff. But I'm struggling to do anything because I've got no resources, and I've tried to change it to a creative server. I've got to figure out how to do it, because basically what I wanted to do is have an environment where they can, if they do get into it, I'll get another account, and then they can both, you know, if we actually I don't have another machine to run it at the minute, because there's only that laptop. My old laptop won't cut it for it, and obviously the Chromebook would need to have Linux on it to run it. But I was thinking of maybe doing something with that, with this server, and there's some mods they want to try and all sorts. So, but I've got to do some research, but it seems like a really fun game. I can see why people enjoy it, because I do like these sandbox type open world sort of things anyway, and you know, it looks interesting anyway. So hopefully I'll get more into it and figure out how to really do it. Really, it's just a thing. But yeah, I actually tried to do it on a Raspberry Pi, because I've got this Raspberry Pi lying around I hardly ever use, and I was going to use that as a Minecraft server, and I got it all installed and everything, but then it wouldn't connect to it, and I sort of gave up, and I thought, I'll just install it on the machine anyway, because I can't use it for anything else anyway. You know, I don't have another machine to use it as a server, so I may as well use the same machine, and it'll be a lot more powerful than the Raspberry Pi. So, but I'm got to figure out what to do with this Raspberry Pi that's lying at my feet at the minute, looking a bit depressed. It's not been used in a while. Right. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? What you've well, Linux-wise, before we hit some news items.
Linux-wise, I posted on Google Plus and Facebook a while back that I switched my mother's XP laptop to Solid DK, and she has used it, and she actually did like it. So I'm like, yes, one more step closer. And that transition went over well. I've used it myself a couple times, and I'm still trying to figure out what else I'm going to do with it. It's just going to remain a backup laptop for the time being, because I don't like using it. It's heavy, bulky, and I got my Chromebook. I'd much rather carry that around. And it's old, so it's slow. Even with Linux, it runs way faster, but it's still slow because the hardware is limited.
Yeah.
What else? No, that's actually about it as far as what's new as far as technology is concerned. So, or my technology.
Yeah, similar situation, like I say, with my backup old laptop. Sometimes I had it up here not so long ago, but it's worth having one around, even if it's an old machine, just in case you need it or something goes wrong with your main machine and stuff like that. And I'm gonna try something else on it soon, and possibly I know the Linux Mint 17 is coming out, and that looks quite good, or something like that on there. At the minute, it's got Arch on it because I was using it to test the Arch system out before I installed this one and get used to how it all works and everything before I switched over the main system. So it's still got Arch on it, but it'd be overkill for that an old laptop like that to run Arch with all the top packages and stuff. It could probably run Ubuntu or one of the flavors of Ubuntu, like Ubuntu or Linux Mint. Probably Linux Mint will probably be what will go on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so shall we have a look at a couple of items? We won't spend hours talking because I think we're keeping people a bit anyway. But there's some big things have happened since we last spoke. So you said you were having some YouTube issues, like you do a lot of YouTube stuff, don't you? And you're having some content ID issues and things. And
see this eye twitching? This is you, YouTube. This is you.
And yeah, it's funny you should say Twitch, because that's the news item, isn't it? They're looking to buy Twitch TV, which was one of the last holdouts for gamers broadcasting, and everyone's thinking, oh no, content ID is gonna hit there.
Yeah, it's so. As far as the Twitch thing, sorry, I had to reorganize my thoughts there. It's a rumor that is a rumor that isn't a rumor. It's probable that Twitch is going to be acquired by YouTube because Twitch is YouTube's biggest threat. Mm-hmm. I don't like the idea of YouTube gaining more control over everything, but that's a discussion for another time. It has its pluses, it has its minuses. The integration between Twitch and YouTube will be better. It'll be less finicky than it is right now. Twitch will have more resources behind it, and maybe they'll change their stance on the chat system being delayed by about 30 seconds because they'll have the giant money bank that is YouTube. What else? Yeah, there's really not much I can say about it. I have mixed feelings on it. What about you? We can come to my YouTube problems later in a second.
I'm not a Twitch. Not yet anyway. I've not used Twitch, and I'm not streamed anything like that. So to me, it's more to do with what I have seen people on it before and everything, and I can see their concerns. But I'm sort of with you. I think YouTube, they tend to buy things, but they tend to leave them alone quite a bit, and it'd be silly of them to try and shut it down or alter it in a massive way that will stop people from using, because they'll just go and use something else, and something else will come along. So what's the point? So I don't think they're going to do much with that at all, because and the content ID thing, I don't think is a massive issue as people might make out for that, because it's live streaming. It's not like you're recording. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not. I know you can record it, but I mean, they don't keep them on, do they? On Twitch, it's not like you've got like an archive of your past games on there. Once it's gone, isn't it? If you've missed the window, you can't go back and watch it. Like if I watch the ones you've done, I couldn't go back and watch those, could I?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. I don't think the content ID will apply.
To a certain extent. It only lasts for about 2-3 weeks, I think, maybe 4. It doesn't last forever, but you can watch previous broadcasts on Twitch.
Right. Okay. So, but it's not archived forever like YouTube. So, it's not like you're going to monetize off that and you know, and for years or anything like that. So I don't think it's going to be a massive problem. So I think people are worrying too soon. We'll see what happens, but I think they're worrying a little bit too soon with that. But I think what's more worrying is I think Vimeo are looking to do content ID. So people who have gone to Vimeo from YouTube because they're a little bit more relaxed might have to go again because they're going to probably have the same problem over there. I know some of the guy. There's a couple of people I follow. Is the guy who does the I don't know if he did like the Star Wars Begins thing, and he did like those what he calls filmumentaries, where they're like he did all the Star Wars movies, and he did the Indiana Jones and things, and it's like it intersperses documentary footage with the movie footage, and it has like titles and subtitles and things explaining what's going on, and they're fantastic. He does a great job, but he couldn't put anything on YouTube because they kept getting pulled because it was Star Wars content. It's automatically pulled. The same with the guys who are doing the Star Wars, the fan edits, the revisited ones. They got pulled. Most of their clips, they keep putting clips on as showing their work, and they get getting pulled for content, like copyright. So they went to Vimeo as well. So if they have to go from Vimeo, where are they going to go? I don't know. So yeah, it's crazy, But like, you can sort of tell us a bit about. I know you've mentioned it before. You're getting all these false claims on your account, on your videos, and I think it's important because it's. I don't have anything against the content ID system if it was done properly, but it seems like 99% of the time it's false claims, and they take the word of these algorithms that are picking out stuff from YouTube videos, and then you lose out because you can't monetize for however long it goes on for. And then, if it rules in your favor, which usually it would, you don't. It's not like they say, "Oh, here you go. Sorry about that. Here's the money you would have had." So, I guess that's the main thing, isn't it? I don't think you got an objection to it if it worked. That's what I'm saying.
If it worked, which automated systems very rarely do, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But the system is now abusable. So for those that don't understand or don't know what's going on, basically YouTube now has has always had an automated system that would check, to make sure you weren't using copyrighted material without having permission. That's the basic gist of it. It's a lot more complex than that. It was tame up until about last year. And then it changed somewhere, I don't know, in the past 6 months. The basic thing is now it's an open floodgate. Companies can put in their copyright stuff and say any video that has this music or this sound clip or this video clip is copyrighted by us, and we want an automatic claim. Channels that used to be exempt from this, like big conglomerate channels or whatever, like Polaris or what's another one? Machinima. These channels used to be exempt from those. They would just maintain it themselves. YouTube said, nope, we're now doing everyone under this new system. And the problem is that this system is abusable because companies can now say, you're using our game footage in your critique of this. I'm sorry. You're using this game footage in your video of a critique of our game. We want it pulled, or we want it to be. We don't want you monetizing off of it anymore.
Yeah.
And
so basically, that's a slightly different thing, though, isn't it? That's to do with the abuse in terms of, say you play a game, you show a bit of the gameplay and say this game's crap, this is why it's crap, and and everything, and you're being honest. You're not slandering them or anything. You're saying, look at this. I do this, and it's just the AI is terrible or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turn around and say, all right, we don't want you we want this pulled because of copyright. You've used our footage, without permission. But the real reason is because they don't want the bad review flooding YouTube.
So that's one part of it. The other problem that affects me directly at this point is just the automated system that says, well, this sounds vaguely like this other song that we have a copyright to, so we're going to claim it as our own. I've had one particular video, which was my second video of my Let's Play of Shattered Haven, got over 9, or I think it's up to 10 now, maybe even 11. I haven't checked in a while. 11 copyright notices saying this song is ours, even though it's not the same. It's not even the same artist. It'll be a completely different artist, a completely different song that's not even in the same genre. And it'll say this is our song, and we want the monetization for this entire video, just because of this short little song. This entire video is now ours.
Yeah,
or even video clip.
There's two issues with that. Firstly, fair use should be applied, because if you're not, if you're showing 30 seconds of something, I know I don't think we have it in the UK, but you definitely have it in the States where there's a fair use policy. You can show, especially if you're doing a review, because you're reviewing their product, you can display their product, can't you? If you're reviewing it or whatever. And there's a fair use policy, so as long as you're not playing the entire thing, it's like, how can you review a song if you don't play some of it for people to hear? But surely the other side of it is YouTube should be looking at it and saying, how can 10 different songs be claiming the same video? If it's only one song being played, for example, if you were playing loads of different songs on a video, maybe, but they should then look at it, and somebody should look at that and say, hang on, there's something wrong here. So it's broken. Yeah. This whole system is broken to begin with, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just getting to the point of insanity, because this video is getting hit again and again and again, and nearly at the same spot. You'd think YouTube would have the system to realize, hang on, this guy's countering every claim, and they've been right, so why aren't I just stopping this? No, it keeps going and going, and we've had this. Everyone on YouTube is now just getting hit with false claim after false claim after false claim, and it can take up to 60 days. 60 days for these copyright claims to go away, and that's, if some other company doesn't come along and say, hey, this is also ours, and it's just getting to the point that I haven't made videos. I'm just currently refusing to.
A lot of people are using stock music now, aren't they? Because YouTube can provide you with some. It's rubbish, a lot of it, but they're even doing that if they're doing some sort of short video, because they don't want to take the chance of losing the monetization or having the video pulled and things like that, and they're just using YouTube's own music and things. It's stupid, really. They're just destroying their own user base doing this. And I don't know if it was you or somebody else who posted. Somebody had done a I don't know if it was a Let's Play or something, and it had a song from the game, which was a public domain song or something in the game, or it was free. It was like a Creative Commons or something like that, and somebody put a claim on it, and the actual song that they claimed was a song that actually used the clip of that song in the game, because it was public domain. They were allowed to use it and release a song, and now they're trying to claim the original song as theirs in a content ID thing. And you got to use some intelligence, I think. If somebody should be reviewing these, and it shouldn't take 60 days. And I know they get hit by a lot of them, but then they've got the resources to deal with this, because it's embarrassing for them at the minute. This.
And there needs to be some sort of.
Really.
There
Sorry?
needs to be some sort of counterbalance for companies. You know, if you're just making a widespread bunch of claims are false, then you need to be punished in some form. I don't know what that is. Like, put them on a delayed queue of some kind. You know, every claim now has to be watched by us, or something. Because these companies, they have no reason not to do it. If I was one of these companies, I'd do it because, like, pff, what are you going to do to me? Nothing, as far as I can tell.
At the very least, they should say, okay, your claim, you know, you've disputed this. This is you. You've disputed it, and you've won. Here's the money you would have earned, because they've got a record of how many people have watched your video between the 60 days it may have taken to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, you say, okay, you've earned 20 cents or 50 cents, or this is what you would have got. It's not about the money, is it? It's the principle of it. You know, but it could be a lot more than that. If it's a video that's gone viral, it could be a lot more than a couple of dollars, couldn't it? So, but it's not about necessarily about the actual money. It's the principle. You know. Right, shall we go to the next?
Yeah, so let's get off this unhappy subject.
Yeah,
A lot of it has to do with... Unfortunately, all this comes down to U.S. copyright law being completely inadequate.
Yeah.
And we can thank our idiots in Congress for continuing to let this situation...
Yeah, well, it's all about the money, isn't it? Oh, and just as I'm looking at my notes, my Nexus 7 decides to reboot itself. But I think the next thing we had on there was, I think it was we were mentioning the Ubuntu release, but we sort of talked about that, the LTS to 1404. So yeah, that's we've mentioned it. You know, quite an impressive release. You know, and I've mentioned a couple of niggles I've had with it. Microsoft released another Surface. I'm not sure what they're doing. You know, I can see some people wanting that, but I mean, how much was it? $800 or something like that?
Yeah, the cost is pretty insane just to buy the initial model. Insane is probably being a bit too nice. It's the first gen all over again. Too expensive, not enough features, has a lot of problems, namely it being a Surface built on an operating system that doesn't have a lot of functionalities compared to its competitors, and it feels like Microsoft never learns. And here we are.
It is a Surface Pro, isn't it? It's not because they're not even making RTs anymore, are they? They've abandoned.
No, they aren't. So I guess that's the one upside to it, is that it's more now of a laptop.
Yeah, it's basically a laptop replacement because it is a Surface Pro, so it is full Windows 8.1. So to give it some, it's comparable to the Ultrabook market. So you're paying through the nose for a lightweight, portable, fully operational computer, but I think that the price point is an important thing, because it's not like they're Apple. You know, Apple can release an ultra thin MacBook Air or something like that, but nobody else makes them. Whereas Windows PCs, lots of people make them. They're not exclusive to their hardware. So whereas Macs are, you know, so they're sort of modeling their prices and things on that, and they don't have the same. You know, they don't have the same. It's not the same clout, is it? They don't have the same support. They don't have the same exclusivity. And you know, and there are people who are going to want them. There are Windows people out there, and I've recently played with Windows 8.1, and it's okay. You know, it's Windows. There's not a lot more to say. It's not any different really, apart if you just try to ignore all the Metro screen stuff, which I did try. Well, to be fair, some of it is okay. You know, some of the Metro apps are all right. I've messed about with a couple of them.
Yeah, it's still based on. It is still based on Windows, so
yeah, it's still
awful.
Windows. It's, you know, it's the same code that they've had for years, so it's just tweaked and everything. So everything's going to work, but the reason it works is because it's the same code. So if that's what you need and it works, then that's fine. But I mean, and there's always going to be a high-end market, and there are people who will pay that. But I don't know what their strategy is, because they always sort of tinker with the hardware market, but they're not really hardware people, are they? They're not hardware.
No.
You know. So what is it they're trying to to do. I don't think they know yet, really.
No, I don't think they know yet. And
Yeah.
I think that's going to plague them for a while longer.
It's like with the Xbox One. You know, that's the other thing that happened recently with the Xbox One, and then abandoning the Kinect. So they basically killed that, because who's going to make a game with Kinect support if they don't need to? And they've also said that you know, if they redirect some of the resources that would have been used for a Kinect, it can give them the console a 10% performance boost. You know, so if you're a developer making a game, you're going to put that 10% into the GPU and not in, you know, if you're going to make use of it, aren't you? You're not going to support the Kinect. And you can't buy them on their own, so they're basically going to it's going to disappear within the next year. At least I think so, anyway. But so the other thing was the Apple announcements. Quite interesting. Yep. They were quite amusing, weren't they? Did you see the comparisons between OS X Yosemite and GNOME 3? The UI,
I did hear and see a few of them. Yeah,
it's literally identical. You know, a lot of the client-side decorations, like they opened up the Safari browser and they opened up the GNOME 3 browser, and apart from where the buttons are, because obviously Macs have the buttons on the left, they were pretty much identical. You know, the search bars in the same place, all these sort of pop-down menus and widgets and things, and you know, the GNOME guys are saying, oh, you know, it's a big compliment that, you know, but it is a little bit. You're getting all these Mac people going, oh, it's fantastic. Look, you know, people have had that for a couple of years now on Linux. So yeah, it is a strange one. It's possible they came up with it on their own, but it obviously doesn't look like somebody was looking at GNOME and thinking, oh, that looks nice, we'll take that. And you know.
I think the fact that Android and Linux were going this way for a while now, and then Apple comes out, you know, a few years later, hey, we've got this new look. Ignore the fact that it looks like these other things. I mean, iOS 8 looks like Android. We said that, or we said iOS 7 looks like Android. iOS 8 again looks like Android. So
don't get me wrong, I like the look of it. You know, I've not looked at a lot of screenshots, and I saw the dock looks a lot more like the Android dock and the iOS 7 dock, basically. So they've modernized that, because that has needed an overhaul for quite a while. You know, it's not the most modern looking desktop. You know, it was when it came out, but they've been using that desktop for what, 5-6 years now, or something like that, or longer. I can't remember. But it does look okay, and some of the features they're implementing, you know, where this thing about, I've forgotten what it's called, where you can take you can work on something on your iPad and then move it to your Mac or your iPhone, and you know, you can, like, say you can start writing an email in one of them and then transfer it to the other, and that sort of thing. It's all right. It's some decent stuff there. But when I start looking at iOS 8, you know, implementing widgets and things like that, and things that obviously Android have had for a while, and it just shows. To be honest, I don't really care what they do. I'm not one of these militant people going to go, oh, you know, it's a disgrace they're ripping off this and that, because that's what technology companies do. They rip each other off. So
pretty much, yeah. My opinion is that it's interesting, but ultimately this is nothing new, and I think it's more of a disservice to Apple that they're just copying. But if they want to go ahead and do that, go ahead. If that's what you guys want to do these days, that's up to you. I think it just makes their what do they call these conferences feel a lot more hollow. I mean, I know they've always been a sales pitch and whatnot, but it's just like, yeah, we worked on this for years and months or whatever. And it's like, it looks like what your competitor's doing. This isn't really that impressive. So it makes you look like you have a giant inflated ego. And I think that's the wrong way of handling it.
I don't bother watching
Oh, I didn't either.
the keynotes and stuff because you can, and I've caught some of the sort of the synopsis of them and stuff, and it's like they say some crap on these things, especially Apple, because they make out that and it's not always what they actually say, it's what they don't say, and they said something about they keep going on about Android for being full of viruses and malware and fragmentation. They're still going on about that. They're still going on about that, and Tim Cook even said something about they're getting a lot of new users who have moved from Android to iOS, and they're very happy now after they'd bought an Android phone by mistake. Yeah, because I suppose maybe some people buy a phone by mistake, but it's like this.
Isn't that more of an insult to your brand anyway?
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it's just and pushing things like malware on an Android phone. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, of course there's going to be more of that because it's an open system. You haven't got an open system, so you have that's the choice you make. And if you want to be totally protected, then you go for iOS and even then you can get stung still. But if you want to be a big boy and do things yourself and make your own decisions, take some risks, and that's what you need. You need more flexibility, and you go for Android. I'm not saying one's better than the other. They're different. But what's the point of all this saying, there's more viruses on Android and stuff? But there's a reason there's more viruses. There's more viruses on PCs, on Windows PCs, than there is on Linux. And it's not necessarily because Linux is more secure. It's because Linux has got less than 1% of the market. So who's going to make a virus for Linux when they can make it for Windows? That's why Macs have got less viruses than Windows, because they've only got.
It's the same thing that Apple's done in the past, with their attacks on Windows. Is always, it's got malware, it's got viruses, and it's the same message said to a different company. And yeah, malware is an issue. There's no doubt about that. But
did you hear about the go-to fail bug in OS 10 that they found not so long ago?
The go-to bug? No.
There was a thing, like we've had the Heartbleed thing for OpenSSL.
Oh, right.
Linux stuff.
That's right. Mac had the same issue.
On the Mac, they had a similar issue, but what it was somebody had put an extra go-to into the code. So where it was going to, instead of going to fail, it was a go-to fail. It's like I'm not a developer, so I don't know the ins and outs of how it works, but they'd put an extra go-to in, so it said go to fail instead of. So basically, it was gonna let something through every time, and apparently it was an accident, and it was this big conspiracy that somebody had paid this guy to accidentally put that in because it was not an obvious mistake, but a very difficult one to spot, and it basically opened the system up to all sorts of abuse.
Yeah.
And it took ages to get that fixed because it was in iOS and in OS 10 because they use a similar code base. And there's people saying the NSA paid somebody off, and it's possible. Anything's possible in this world. I wouldn't put it past anybody, to be honest. But I mean, it's not something. It's not like any operating system's secure. But if it's got an input and output, then good chances you're going to get hacked in one way or another. So let's concentrate on what's good about something, not what's bad about your competitor. That's what I say.
Well, it's the FUD all over again, and Apple loves to do it. I mean, who doesn't? All the companies love to do it, but Apple especially seems to take a perverse joy in continuing to spread the FUD about their competitors, and it's annoying because then I have to deal with it. It's like, well, isn't Android really unsecure or something? It's like, no, it's not. It really isn't. But there you go.
I'll say it keeps you in business.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We could rag on that all day. I don't really want to rag on it all day, though, because it's silly corporate stuff. And Apple should know better, but they don't. So.
It's not. It used to bother me certain things, but these days I haven't got time to mess about with all this. I just, everybody's happy to use what they prefer. You know, and that's it. You know, just let people live and let live. Let people do what they want, and you know, just innovate. That's what we want. Is things to improve, and not, you know, not mess around. You know, with all this rubbish. You know. Anyway.
The one thing I will say though is Yosemite is a dumb operating system. But then again, I thought the same about what was the last one?
Mavericks.
Mavericks.
Yeah. Well, they'd run out of cats, haven't they? So they had to.
Yeah, I guess that was their reasoning, but this name change just doesn't make any sense. It's Mavericks is like, what? And then Yosemite is like, are you going to go mountains now? I mean, I'm fine with mountains, but could you stay on mountains now if you're going to do that?
Yeah. Well, and they've also moved on to 10.10, haven't they? So they've totally screwed up the numbering system. But I don't think they were planning on being on it this long, because what they should have done is, you know, they've gone. It was 10.9, and it should have. 10.10 doesn't exist. It should be 10. It should be 10.1.0, which would have been before 10.2. So, but they're calling it 10.10. Because I don't think they want to move on to OS 11. It doesn't sound right, does it? OS 11, and you'd think OS 11 have to be a massive change. OS 11 will be when they change to ARM.
They could have made it OS 11. I think they would have had no issues with that, but yeah, that's just my opinion.
They'll change to OS 11 when they change to ARM. I think when all Macs become ARM devices and iOS is integrated into Macs. It'll happen eventually. It might take 5 years, but it'll happen. Eventually, it'll all be one system. You'll just have a portable version of your Mac. It'll be an iPhone and an iPad.
Who knows? Maybe.
Anyway, so another thing that happened recently, this is probably Witcher 2. A big deal made out of this because it got Linux support, but we found out that it was basically a wine. It wasn't even wine. It was a proprietary thing. It was
a proprietary.
some sort of emulator to run
the
Windows version.
I'll go ahead and explain this. So The Witcher 2 is an open... No. It's a very expansive RPG made by CD Projekt Red. You've probably heard of it if you're a gamer, because it's one of the most popular RPGs of all time. It was recently ported to Linux, and everyone, you know, kind of was really excited about it because a lot of them wanted to see it on Linux. Then we found out the problem with it, which is that it's wrapped in a wrapper called Eon, I think, which is a proprietary wrapper that's supposedly used to port games to Mac and now Linux. The port was done very shoddily. As far as we can tell, there are performance problems. The game is buggy. It crashes. I ran it myself. The first 30 seconds were me skipping around the place on a machine that's able to run it smoothly on Windows. So, not my problem. And then there's other reports of just general mayhem and it not working properly. And it doesn't work on AMD graphics cards, which was really upsetting for those who had AMD hardware, because it wasn't really mentioned. They said yes in the recommended specs you want to use a NVIDIA card, but it never really outright said, oh, you need an NVIDIA card or otherwise your system's not going to run it. That was never mentioned, and I think that was their biggest mistake, is that they didn't really make that clear.
It doesn't even run on Intel, does it? It doesn't even run on Intel.
It doesn't run on Intel cards either. I mean, not that the game's going to look good on Intel cards, but there you go.
It's just that Intel is native. You know, Intel is all open source drivers for Linux, so it's very well supported. So you can tell straight away that it's not going to be a Linux native game if it doesn't run on Intel graphics.
No.
Like I said, it might be the top of the range sort of effects, but
so they bungled it, which makes what I'm about to say even more hilarious. Civilization 5, another fairly AAA quality game, grand strategy, 4X, and no, it's not 4X. It's a grand strategy turn-based game, came out on Linux today. It is a native Linux port, and as far as I'm aware, I might regret saying this later, it doesn't have the same issues. It's still too early to say because not everyone, has bought it and tested and made sure that it's all without its
I'm sure it'll be
issues,
very well examined after that.
But
I mean,
the developers were upfront about what it does and doesn't work, and saying that they're looking for feedback to improve performance if there's any problems found. CD Projekt Red said none of this.
Well, part of the problem was as well
is
they didn't like you said, they didn't make it clear that it was, they made a massive deal about it being on Linux, but then they didn't make it clear that it was just a wrapper, and then it didn't work very well. And apparently, if you just got the Windows version and you used Wine, which is totally open source, and everything, it worked better than
that was the best part. So, for those that don't know, if you bought Linux and just run it on Wine, it ran better than getting the native version, and
you can't make it up.
So two groups screwed this up. One was CD Projekt and the company that they hired out to do this. If CD Projekt wasn't willing to do it right the first time and wasn't willing to test it, because as far as I can tell, they never tested it, don't put it out and don't make a big deal about it. And if it's in or if you want us to beta test it, make it absolutely clear that you are beta testing this, or getting it out there so that people can test it, people can find the problems, and then you can patch it. Don't release it and say this is a full release game ready to ship right now, because you just pissed off all those people. Congratulations. There's
two camps out there
PR
as well.
mistake.
Yeah, there's two camps out there, isn't there? There's, on the one hand, there's the really sort of militant Linux people who just outraged that they tried to pull a fast one and it's just in a wrapper, and we want native games. And then there's the other camp that says, well, I would have been fine with it being in a wrapper as long as it worked, and I'm probably in the second camp. I'm not, yes, I would prefer it to be native, but if you can't do it, or it shows they're obviously interested in supporting Linux in some way, and if that's the best way they can do it to get the game out, okay, that's no problem for me, but do it right, make sure it works great, so it's a seamless experience.
They didn't do it. They just didn't do that, and unfortunately I do have to come down on the Linux guys because they just made an ass out of themselves.
Yeah.
I said my bit, but I saw the stuff that was said on the Steam forums. You guys are not classy at all in how you handled it.
No.
And yeah, CD Projekt ruined you or something like that. Guys, it's a game. Get it. It's a game. I had my issues with it too, but the way it was overblown. And there's a good point brought up, if developers look at this and say, well, this is the treatment that we're going to get if we accidentally screw up, screw that, I don't want to touch it, well, good job. Good job on that one, because you just alienated all those developers. Hopefully, if there's any problems with Civilization 5, the same problems will not happen.
Hopefully.
But, yeah, the fault lies in CD Projekt. They mishandled it. They didn't do their homework. The company also said, well, we can't afford to get the... This is what I find hilarious. The company that ported Witcher 2 over to Linux said, we can't afford to get the testing, the people to test this product in all different versions of Linux. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? There's probably at least 10 guys out there that could do this for a reasonable wage. If you guys are going to be a bunch of cheap asses about this, then why are you even on Windows, for that matter? Because I'm sure they work with Windows.
Yeah. And
Windows is a bigger nightmare than Linux. Yeah, sure, it's the same operating system, but you got so many different versions of hardware running it. I'm surprised you guys can even handle that.
Yeah, it's the same issues. They've announced Witcher 3 though, haven't they? Now, and apparently that's been announced for Linux too.
That'll be on Linux, and hopefully not done by the same company. Hopefully they'll just realize, oops.
Right. The last thing we had was Good Old Games, which
right. So CD Projekt yet again.
Well, they were primarily obviously from the name, they're a website that but it was like a games reseller, aren't they, or something that basically they basically started off selling old games, basically old DOS games, wasn't it, originally? And then they sort of branched out into more modern games, and it's still older games, isn't it? But
so
for a long time they said they wouldn't support Linux, and then they've sort of softened that a bit. But now they're going into compete with Steam a little bit and having their own store. Is that right?
Yeah, it definitely. So they announced GOG Galaxy, which is a digital distribution platform that's completely DRM free, that doesn't use their own central servers. It allows you to connect with your friends without having to depend on servers, which I'm assuming means peer-to-peer technology or something to that effect. But that's kind of the basic gist. It's Steam without being locked to the Steam platform. And
right.
That's all that's really been announced, and that's all we really know at this point.
What is it they're going to be doing? It's the games that they're selling currently. I'm not quite following what it is that they actually what this peer-to-peer thing. What does it mean? Being connected to your friends, so you can share games or you can play together.
No, so you can play with other people. Instead of being connected to a central server like Diablo or Battlefront or Call of Duty, they all connect to a central server and then connect you to games with other people. The idea here is that this is my guess. The problem is that we're a little light on the details. Is they're going to go to a more peer-to-peer, which basically means that your computers connect directly to each other without a server.
Right.
Services like a lot of games use this technology, especially on PC, in order to do multiplayer. And I suspect that's what they're going to do. I don't know for certain, obviously.
Right, I sort of get you now. So basically, if the game supports some sort of multiplayer, they'll facilitate that. So they'll have. It's basically like a social network for multiplayer games that they sell. Is that right? So you can play the games together?
No, the idea is that it's just going to be... I mean, that is a part of it. Mm-hmm. You're right on that part. But the other part of it is that it's going to be a client that you can buy games from. You can install games right there from this client instead of having to go to the GOG.com website.
Right.
And it's like having iTunes, basically.
Right, got you. So basically, you got the client. Once you got the client, you got an account. Obviously, then everything's connected to other people with the client. It'll facilitate. So say you've got a game, and you can see if your friends have got the same game.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to play this game and stuff like that as well. It's a bit like the way Steam works in the sense of I can see what games you've played and what games you own, and then if I've got the same game, and I could invite you to play.
Correct. I think that's mostly what they're going to do. It's going to be a Steam competitor, and the big deal that everyone's making of it is that it's going to be DRM free, and that's kind of huge because if you buy a game from Steam, some are DRM free. There are some companies that are willing to do that, even on Steam. I know one where you can just grab the game files. When you download and install them on your computer, you can grab the files and take them out, and you don't have to run it through Steam. But the majority of them are run through the Steam DRM, and a lot of companies choose to use that DRM. Yeah. The idea here is that it's going to be a client completely devoid of that, so you don't have to run it, but you can, and you can buy games from it, and you can get deals, and that's kind of the big reason why there's a lot of fuss about it.
I wonder if you'd be able to import games into it. Like I think you can do that with Steam, can't you? You can import games into Steam. Not, so say you've already got a game, you can import that into. I'm trying to get this right. You can import it into Steam, into your games list. Is that right? And then So say, and then that would work as well. That would facilitate playing with somebody, or at least knowing if they've got that game.
That part I don't know. I would guess they'll probably try and do something like that because again their games are going to be very DRM free, so they're going to have some way of, seeing, okay, this guy has a copy of, I don't know, Doom 3 on his machine, and if you add it to the client, you can immediately see, who it is. So I think they're going to have something like that, or at least they'll eventually have it. I don't know. Again, we don't know that many details, so a lot of it is assumptions. But it'll probably have something like that where you can see, okay, he has Doom 3 and he's been playing it for 15 hours recently. So that's a pretty good guess.
Well, all in all, it can only be a good thing, isn't it? It's more exposure and everything, and it's a more of a, it's an increase in choice and things like that for the PC gamers and things, isn't it? So. Yeah,
and it certainly attracts me to buying it from GOG instead of Steam because I have my own concerns about Steam. All of my games being in my Steam library. Yeah, that's definitely got some issues because, say, Steam shuts down tomorrow. Oops, that's a lot of money I can't access anymore.
Although they have promised to give you all the games that you paid for on Steam if they're closed.
Yes.
I'm sure there'll be a catch somewhere.
There probably isn't a catch, but there is no 100% guarantee. I mean, Steam can claim that now because they're still in business, but who knows what could go wrong. And I would prefer most of my games to be DRM free because not having to worry about a game suddenly being useless in a couple of years is kind of nice. It's not required for all games because, you have these online games like World of Warcraft. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to play that in 10 years because the servers are going to be down. I mean, I'm going to be shocked if that game's still up in 10 years, really. So, it's good news. As you said, more competition will give more exposure to these older games and gives some developers a new platform that they can sell on too. So I think it's good news.
Yep, definitely. Right, it's probably time we got out of here.
Yep, I think we've been taking up people's time enough.
Yeah. Right, Tim, do you want to let us know what you're doing and where people can find you?
Well, whenever I get back around to it, which at the rate I'm going is next to never, you can find me at www.kingisaaclinkser.com, where I have a blog where I promise I will write more posts and never, ever, ever, ever do it. And as I say that now, I'll probably be posting tomorrow.
Tell me about it. And the same, you can find me and the blog at TeknoCratik. On Twitter and on the TeknoCratik page on Facebook. You can find the website at dangelous.com. Click on the TeknoCratik link, and there's also other stuff on there. There's my personal blog, which never gets used much. There's the Out of Range podcast, which is also been on a hiatus, where we talk about geeky sci-fi stuff. And also, if you want to check out my wife's blog at dangelous.com/ATN, she's been doing a great job on chronicling our adventures in homeschooling our girls, which we've been doing for just over a year now, and it's quite an adventure, so it's an interesting read. And that's about it, isn't it, really? You can find
Google Plus at +Timothy Wetzel, and yeah, that's about it. You can find my YouTube channel as well at A Paladin Without a Crusade, but don't know when I'll be posting vids anytime soon, so my life.
Yeah, I'll say you can find me on Twitter as well. My personal Twitter is at Dangelous, but all the information is at dangelous.com. DANGELUS.com. Just like to thank Mr. Rick Moyer for the intro and outro music. He does a great job. You can find him at moyermultimedia.com. And that's about it, really. Thank you very much, Tim. It's glad to be back and talking again after this hiatus. We'll try and make sure and do it a little bit more more regular from now on, and we'll see how this has turned out with using Hangouts to do everything, relying on them. So hopefully everything will work out.
Okay, and then I'll see you guys next time.
Take care.